Welcome back to another video. This is a video I wasn't going to put out there, but after careful consideration after my wild camp, I figured the issues that I had on Saturday night needed highlighting. We attempted a wild camp on High Cup Nick in Cumbria. That's all I'm going to say on the matter at the minute. The next 4 minutes of the video is going to be the approach up onto High Cup Nick, and then after that I'll come back and we'll have a chat about what went wrong, why it went wrong, and if there's anything we can learn from it. So stick around for the next few minutes, enjoy this beautiful scenery, and I'll catch up with you real soon. So, as you can see, we're clagged in. Just on the approach now to Narrowgate Path, which is sort of the last 1.5 kilometres up to the top of High Cup Nick. Got Peeping Hill just behind me, and as you can see, we're clagged in. Wind's starting to pick up. Hopefully this wind will blow a bit of this mist off, and hopefully we'll get up there and get some decent views. I'm not hopeful, but anything can change. It would be nice to bring you some spectacular views, but unfortunately this is what we've got. So I'm hopeful for getting to the top, and I'm hopeful that this wind might blow some of this clag off. Otherwise this is going to be one very boring video. I have brought the drone. I'm hoping to get drone up, but I can't see that happening tonight. So yeah, well and truly clagged in. We have got like a pretty spectacular boulder field on the way up. So anyway, we're nearly at the top now, so wind's picking up, so hopefully things will start to improve. I'm not hopeful, but I hope you stick around, and we'll see what it's like when we get up onto High Cup Nick. I have a feeling it's going to be ridiculously windy. I am out in the Ellerberg Sulu, and I've got a full winter bag on, so we'll just have to see once we get up there. So as you've just seen there, the weather was pretty brutal. It was pretty grim. The clag was in. The further we climbed up onto the top of High Cup Nick, the more brutal the wind got, until we got to the top of High Cup Nick, and we were reaching wind speeds of 65 mile an hour plus. So as anybody can imagine, wild camping in this sort of conditions is pretty crazy. Yes, I was in the Ellerberg Sulu. Yes, I had a 4-season tent. I was with a mate who also had a 4-season tent, who also had a winter bag, and also had a winter sleeping mat. What happened was, On the last 500 metres up onto High Cup Nick, my mate said to me that it was cold. Well, if you're hiking and you're cold, that is generally the start of exposure, the early signs of hypothermia kicking in. So I said to him, right, we've only got 500 metres left. Let's get to the top of here, get tents up, find a bit of a sheltered spot, and then we can sort ourselves out. Get some dry gear on, get some warm brew in us, and we can get through the night. So that's what we did. We continued on. Once we got onto High Cup Nick, the wind was absolutely ferocious. It was crazy, crazy, crazy weather. So we spent 10 minutes or so hunting around and looking for somewhere to pitch, and we found some dead ground. Dead ground is ground that is lower than what the path was around us, and it was ideal. It looked like a great spot. So we quickly got our gear out and started to pitch our tents. Now, as soon as we started to pitch our tents, then the wind got up even more. So I managed to get my Sulu down, get the poles in, and just about to start pegging the guys out. And my mate says to me that it was cold, really cold. It was shaking uncontrollably, his teeth were chattering, his hands were shaking, he couldn't perform simple basic tasks. All I could see was exposure kicking in, exposure had set in. And now this started within a matter of minutes. It wasn't long at all. So I says to my mate, I says, right, we need to make a decision. This was approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sunset was 5 o'clock. So we'd got 2 hours from that time up until sunset to potentially bail and get back down into the village. So we quickly made the decision that things were going wrong. My mate was going down. He was starting to suffer with the onslaught of exposure, and things were starting to potentially look bad. I genuinely believe if we'd have sat there and wild camped that night, we would have been a mountain rescue call out, for sure. Because it would have been one thing getting in the tents and getting dry, but it would have been another thing having to get out of the tent and potentially adjust the guys or adjust the pegs throughout the night. This wasn't about lack of equipment. This wasn't about inadequate equipment. We both had 4-season bags. We both had 4-season mats. We both had 4-season tents. We both had wet weather gear. But for some reason, something failed. Whether it was the fact that it was a relentless wind and rain, and the wind basically just zapped my mate's body temperature, and it just quickly became uncontrollably shivering and shaking. It couldn't function, it couldn't eat. I don't know exactly what went wrong, but it did go wrong. But we made the difficult decision to bail. We made the difficult decision to get down off the hill and make another attempt another time. Now, I've never seen anybody exposed to exposure before. This was a first for me. I knew about the effects of exposure, and I knew what the early signs of exposure were, but I'd never seen it. And how quickly it went from being managing the weather and dealing with it to being uncontrollably shivering and shaking was crazy. It was minutes. So we made that decision. We made that decision to get down, packed up, got us gear on, and headed down off the hill. It was a difficult walk down. The weather, the conditions were particularly bad. The wind was particularly ferocious. There was hail, there was wind, there was rain. It was everything. But equally, my mate was suffering. Now, I gave him the encouragement that I could. You know, if we'd have had to call mountain rescue, that was an option. I had signal, I had a grid reference. I could have got us a pin location, but they were going to be some time away. We were only an hour away from the car. Mountain rescue could have been potentially 2 hours away. So a lot could have happened within that 2 hours. So we made the call that we need to get down. He struggled. He was struggling. He was just struggling with the cold. He couldn't eat. He struggled to drink. But anyway, I gave him the encouragement that he needed. I explained to him we needed to keep moving, with potential to keep blood flowing, circulating for his body. We're not going to just sit here and not do anything. So we carried on. We eventually got down, sort of halfway down from High Cup Nick, and the weather was much more tolerable. But my mate was scared. He said to me afterwards, he says, that actually did frighten me. So I know that we made the right decision to bail. Now, I don't see bailing as a failure. I see bailing as making a judgment decision to stay alive. At the end of the day, the hills and the mountains are not going anywhere. I've got children. He's got children. We value our lives more than keeping on a mountain and staying up there for the night. So I don't see it as bailing. It was all about making the right decision, getting up there in one piece and getting down in one piece. I do feel that if we had stayed and roughed it out, it would have been a bad night, and potentially it could have been a life-threatening night. That then would have been a failure. So I'm not going to look at this wild camp as a failure. I'm going to look at this as an experience of just quickly how things can go wrong. So what can we learn from it? The thing I can take from it is the speed at which exposure can get into a person. It was ridiculously fast. So the one thing I've never ever carried is a boffer bag. And I genuinely wholeheartedly believe that if things had gone much worse and we were potentially in a life-threatening situation, I wouldn't have had time to get my tent up and pitched and leave my mate sat there suffering, because he may have potentially gone much worse into the stages of exposure. So the thing I'm going to take away from it is that maybe I should be carrying a bothy bag. And then if things do go a little bit bad, we can throw a bothy bag around us, we can get in it, we're out of the wind, we're out of the rain, it's a little bit more manageable, and it's up in seconds. Trying to pitch a tent in a 40, 50, 60 mile an hour wind is not a 5-minute pitch. It takes time. So although I feel I'm prepared to be out there, which I am, I've got the right gear, I've got the right equipment, the one thing I don't carry is a bothy bag. And that's the one thing I'm going to take away from this and potentially start carrying a bothy bag. Because exposure, when exposure kicks in, it kicks in real quick. And it can zap a man. It can zap a man real fast. So this is just this was just really an insight into what went wrong, and how it went wrong. We failed, and that's it. But I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to get upset about it. It just needs highlighting that people heading up onto them hills in trainers, in jeans, inadequately prepared. You really need to be prepared. You need to have the right equipment if you're going up there. Whether you use it or not is another matter. But there will come a time when you will need it. And if you've not got it, you are going to become another statistic for mountain rescue. Mountain rescue are volunteers. They don't get paid for coming out there. And they come out there and get people off hills every day of the week. And it's crazy. The amount of people out there that are real prepared. So that's all I'm going to say on the matter. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've got something from the video. And I hope that if there's any new wild campers out there can learn something from this video. And even the experienced guys out there, we sometimes get it wrong. Sometimes we do fail. We sometimes do fail, and that's just a fact of life. And this has been one of my failures. Not embarrassed about it, not ashamed about it. I've come on camera and I've explained what went wrong. I feel we were adequately prepared to be up there. But unfortunately, when the weather takes hold, exposure takes hold of a person, it's a slow spiral downwards. So yeah. Like I say, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you real soon on the next wild camp. I'll catch you later.